An NFC clash on Sunday Night Football on tap as the Eagles take to the West Coast to face last year's Super Bowl runner-up. The 49ers welcoming the Birds in prime time as the Eagles look for their first win of the season. And thanks to our friends at NBC 10, we have a weather report. It looks like a beautiful night in California for some football. 84 degrees, low humidity. The sun is shining for now, and we are so excited for this matchup. And as always, great to have you with us here on the Eagles Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Amy Campbell, as always, joined by Fran Duffy, holding it down from both sides of the NovaCare complex. And Fran, we've got two teams with a lot of injuries to overcome, two very creative head coaches ready to meet that challenge tonight.
And a huge game for the Eagles, because with all three NFC East teams losing here on Sunday, the Eagles can take control, sole control of first place in the NFC East. As bleak as this has been, the Eagles have the division on their doorstep right here tonight.
Absolutely, and today is an absolute indicator of that around the league as well. All right, we will send it back out to San Francisco as the Birds are warming up at Levi's Stadium. The warm-ups brought to us by our friends at PA Lottery. And Fran, we mentioned it. Let's start with some of those injuries here. And officially, let's start with the Eagles wide receiver group here, because the wide receivers available to Carson Wentz today, a different looking bunch. Greg Ward, John Hightower, Travis Fulgham, Deontay Burnett available. Deshaun Jackson will not play. Alshon Jeffrey still not back yet. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside also not playing. And, of course, Jalen Reagor on injured reserve as well. So a very different wide receiver crew this week than even last week.
No question. And we know who Greg Ward is. We know who Deontay Burnett is. He's been able to fill in not just this season, but late last season as well. You look at Travis Fulgham. He was added to the roster in the middle of training camp, about a week in. He's a young veteran. Has been in the league for a couple of years, first with Detroit, then with Green Bay. He's a big kid who can move a little bit and made plays every single day in training camp and really earned his spot to stick around on the practice squad. So excited to see him in his first action in Eagles green. And then you've got the rookie John Hightower, who came up with some critical plays, honestly, down the stretch, drawing some very important penalty flags for the Eagles offense to help them move the ball down the field to tie the game late last week.
All right, there's Greg Ward right there with Burnett, I believe. Yes, all right, let's take a look at the offensive starters for tonight. And some more big news. Jordan Mailata getting the start there at tackle. Jason Peters was put on injured reserve last night. Jordan Mailata going into his third year in the league, and now another week, another offensive line for the fourth consecutive week in a row. But that means some opportunity for this Australian product, Fran.
Yeah, we'll finally get our real first, extended look at Jordan Mailata. He came in for a couple snaps late last week. He came in for about half a quarter in week one against the Washington football team. And now we're going to get to see his first career start on the left side, protecting the blind side of Carson Wentz. I'm excited to see him, against this San Francisco front who, yes, they've got injuries as well, but they've got some very talented players that he will be lined up against. So it's going to be a big night for Jordan Mailata. I'm excited to see him in his debut.
All right, let's take a look at the Eagles' defensive starters for today. And the challenge here is a quarterback. It's going to be Nick Mullins for this team and not Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think it was Friday that news came down. But look, Rodney McLeod said earlier this week there's been no drop-off in their offense. And Doug Peterson saying we prepare the same way for both of these two quarterbacks because they have a similar style, Nick Mullins and Jimmy Garoppolo. And he's missing some of the weapons on offense that they would normally have as well there. But we know that George Kittle's going to be playing today. Deebo Samuel expected to make his season debut. And Fran, let's talk about this Niners offense, the challenge for the Eagles defense a little bit. It's a Kyle Shanahan offense that it seems like it depends more on the scheme than the players because they've had some big injuries and that offense has still been clicking through 3 games.
And the scheme is very good. There's a reason why this team went to the Super Bowl last year and represented the NFC. And Kyle Shanahan has been one of the most respected offensive minds in football for the better part of the last decade. So, with the Eagles, they've got a big task in front of them here tonight. They've had some success against Kyle Shanahan in the past. but it comes down to playing assignment football. You have got to do your 1/11th whenever you are on the field as a defensive player. You're going to need that level of physicality you see right there in that drill, but more importantly, you need to be disciplined. You need to be assignment sound. You need to be able to key and diagnose what you're seeing. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, but it is imperative for these guys to do their job because you do not want a repeat of what we saw in week 2. Sean McVay and the LA Rams, they do a lot of similar things. It looks a little bit different. The packaging's a little bit different, Amy, but overall it's the same core philosophy of what they're trying to do offensively. So the Eagles have got to make sure that they have everything buttoned up against this San Francisco offense.
Well, and Nick Mullins against the Giants, 25 of 36 for 343 yards and a touchdown. That was his first full game as a starter this season, though he did fill in for Jimmy Garoppolo 2 seasons ago when Jimmy G was out for most of that year. And in 8 games, he did pretty well, but he did throw 10 interceptions during that time. So some opportunity here for the Eagles defense. Let's look back to the Eagles offense because one of the big storylines this week was about possibly going up tempo. Doug Peterson talked about it, speeding things up a little bit. He said, you shock the defense. Maybe if your offense is in a lull, it can jumpstart some things, possibly declutter Carson Wentz's mind was the words that Doug used. Why does the up-tempo game work, and what might we see tonight?
Well, the reason why it unclutters the quarterback's mind is because the play sheet is a little bit shorter. So you have a very specific game plan when you're going to go up-tempo. You're not going to have a long volume of plays. You're going to have a handful that you're going to go with, and now it's about going fast and executing and keeping that tempo up to kind of keep the defense out. And you might see some empty sets out of that. You're going to try and do some different things to just keep the defense on their toes. To me, we'll see if they decide to do that. The Eagles obviously had some success last week against Cincinnati. Late in the first half, you get that touchdown to Greg Ward. Late in the second half, you get the touchdown by Carson Wentz on the sprint to the right side to the pylon. So they were able to move the ball in both of those instances out of that up-tempo look. We'll see if they decide to do that a little bit more here today.
Well, and the challenge for the Eagles defense today, they're facing a 49ers offense that is 11th in the league in points per game allowed with 29. They are the 15th best passing defense in the league, 249 yards per game that they are allowed. Wait, nope, that's not correct. That's their offense. They're the second best passing defense in the league. A tougher challenge there when we're talking about the defense. 3rd in total defense, 2nd in points per game allowed, allowing just 15.3 points per game. And this is also a defense that has been stricken with injuries. Nick Bosa to injured reserve, Solomon Thomas to injured reserve, Richard Sherman and Dee Ford all to injured reserve, as well as they're going to be without 2 corners today, Emmanuel Mosley and Akello Witherspoon. So there is some opportunity here for this Eagles defense to take advantage of what is normally a star-studded San Francisco defense. They are not playing with a lot of their starters and their studs as well. So
2 things. Number 1, they've got to protect Carson Wentz. While you're missing Dee Ford, you're missing Nick Bosa, you're missing Solomon Thomas, there's still Arik Armstead. You still have the top 15 pick in Javon Kinlaw. You've got some veterans over on that side in Kerry Hyder. They promoted Deion Jordan. They signed Ziggy Ansah. They're going to come at you in waves. And on 3rd down, they have one of the most diverse pressure packages that I've seen so far in the 2020 season. They come at you from all different angles, different depths, corner blitzes, linebacker blitzes, safety blitzes. So the Eagles have to make sure that group right there, the offensive line with guys making, their first, second, third starts in the NFL, they have got to be ready both physically and mentally for the San Francisco front. After that, you've got the blue chip players up the middle. Linebacker Fred Warner, he's one of the best in the league. One of the top 3 linebackers in all the NFL, especially against the pass. We talked about that this week on Eagles Game Plan. And then you've got that safety tandem as well in Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward. Those 2 guys, one of the best safety tandems in the entire league. The Eagles have to be aware of where all those guys are in the middle of the field because keep in mind, Zach Ertz, Greg Ward, those guys are going to operate between the numbers, between the hashes. That's where Fred Warner, Tartt, Jimmy Ward, all those guys are. Their best corner right now is K'Wan Williams. He's their nickel guy. He's in the middle of the field. The Eagles have to make sure that they know where all these guys are when Carson Wentz is working between the hashes.
Well, Jaquiski Tartt, to me, on the all-name team for the NFL, one of the best names in the league, in my opinion. And look, we talked about the challenge that the offensive line is going to be facing, the challenges of the offense, but let's zero in a little bit on the Eagles' run game and how critical it's going to be to get that going. Miles Sanders, everybody knows him, 7th in the NFL in the last 2 games in rushing yards, 190 rushing yards in the last 2 games. He is going to be, in my opinion, key today for this Eagles offense.
Yeah, if you're able to run the ball and have success on 1st and 2nd down, not only does that keep the offense going and help you control the football, but it also helps you set up for more manageable 2nd and 3rd down situations. So that makes it also easier for Carson Wentz when he's not dropping back on 3rd and 11 against that pressure package that I talked about earlier. So yeah, running the football, it's important in every game, but when you're down Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, all the weapons that we talked about not on the field for the Eagles tonight, running the ball is going to be extremely important for this offense.
Well, that's a good point because we haven't talked about Dallas Goedert being on injured reserve as well. It's crazy. That almost feels like old news because it happened early in the week as opposed to late in the week. This was a week where the injury report had so many names on it that it was almost hard to keep track of everyone. The Eagles are going to be without Dallas Goedert today. 2 tight ends are active for today. And Fran, we know how important 12 personnel is for this team. How creative might we see coaches get when it comes to mixing things up when you don't have a guy like Dallas Goedert who's been a big part of this offense?
Well, you have to, and that Doug Peterson talked about that in his Monday press conference. I mean, it was the day after the tie to Cincinnati, and he said, look, for week 4 against San Francisco, with all these injuries on offense, we have got to get creative. So I think, when you get past the Miles Sanders, Zach Ertz, Greg Ward trio, you get past those 3 guys who are proven in the league. Now you start looking, who are the other guys that can give us big plays, that can give us chunks? Maybe not 50, 60, 70 yards downfield, but who can move the chains for us? Boston Scott. You look at the young receivers and Deontay Burnett and Travis Fulgham, Richard Rodgers, how can you utilize him? And then also trying to figure out ways to be able to continue to use Jalen Hurts. We've seen him as a runner last week. We saw him as a decoy in week 2 to help create some pass plays for Dallas Goedert and for Boston Scott. You're going to have to use Jalen Hurts in some different ways. So I'm excited to see what this Eagles offensive coaching staff brings to the table, but it all starts with running the football. You're not going to be running trick plays with Jalen Hurts on 3rd and 19. You're going to run those on 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 to try and move the sticks.
Well, and that's a great point, Fran, because one of the things that the Eagles have struggled with is ending up in those 3rd and long situations. I also want to mention running back Adrian Killins brought up from the practice squad this week. An undrafted free agent out of UCF, a guy I'm a big fan of because I started covering him in high school when I was on the ground in Florida. He has 4.3 speed. He's a small guy, but he is electric. And he was a guy who had a great training camp and also played a little bit of receiver during training camp. So could be some versatility there from him today in this offense.
That's a great point. And, he was not bashful about telling the media this summer that even with Deshaun Jackson on the team, he's the fastest guy on this roster. So Adrian Killins, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of believe him. This guy is lightning in a bottle. So I'm interested to see what the Eagles coaching staff can create for him, both as a runner and as a pass catcher in this game as well.
Yeah, I think that could be really fun to watch. Another thing I want to touch on is just when you talk about the strength of the Niners offense, it really goes through their running game. And that's not something that they have been doing so well so far this season. And when you think about the Eagles defense, it's the strength of the run defense. So when I think about this matchup, I think good on good, the Niners run offense versus the Eagles run defense. But the Niners run offense has struggled so far this season. So it could be some opportunity for the Eagles to really make them one-dimensional.
It could be, but I think Jim Schwartz will be one of the first to say that the run defense has not been exactly where they would want it to be either up to this point. They still have too many missed tackles, even going back to last week against Cincinnati. And Joe Mixon, very talented player. We see 3 touchdowns from him today. But I think when you look at this Eagles defense, too often they've got a guy tied up at the line of scrimmage, and now instead of it being 2nd and 10, that running back's able to shake loose and pick up 4 or 5 yards. And again, instead of 2nd and 10, it's 2nd and 5, and the offense is able to keep things moving. The Eagles' run defense, it's imperative that they show up here tonight, because if you can make them one-dimensional, make Nick Mullins drop back on 3rd and long, now you're cooking with gas defensively.
Well, and Fran, I do want to make this point here, and I know every win is tough to get in the NFL, and the Niners are 2-1. That one loss being to Arizona, and those two wins respectively to the Jets and the Giants. So not exactly the toughest competition in the NFL. While they have decisively won those games, I think they won by an average of 22.5 points. So I think this could be an interesting test for them as well, because yes, they were dominant against those two teams, but there's questions about the level of competition for them as well.
Yeah, no question. But any given Sunday, you know how I feel about that, Amy. All these teams have talent and the ability to win on any given week.
Absolutely. Every win is tough in this league. And all right, look at these guys. They're feeling the energy. They're feeling the energy. We're feeling it in here as well. Again, the warm-ups brought to us by our friends at PA Lottery. And let's bring it back to Philly and bring in another part of the building and another member of our team. Eagles insider Dave Spadaro joining us from the NovaCare complex. So, Dave, the Eagles are in a situation they haven't been in since Andy Reid's first year in 1999, going winless through the first 3 games. And Doug Peterson was the quarterback then. How do you compare the start of that season to this one?
It's a great question, Amy, and 2 entirely different scenarios. In 1999, the Eagles were a team starting a new era with Andy Reid, with Donovan McNabb, low expectations, belief in the young quarterback. This team has Super Bowl aspirations, and that's what's been the most frustrating part in an 0-2-1 start. The Eagles put together a roster that they think, they still believe it, will be there at the end in the NFC playoff picture. So to be in this spot with so many injuries, although this is a game with first place implications, it's a different kind of feeling around the football team. It's one of frustration. And so tonight, what I'm looking for is fight from this Eagles team, urgency from this Eagles team, with so many young players stepping into positions that they haven't been in their entire NFL careers.
And I'm glad that you brought it back to this game here, 2020, Dave. I'm interested to get your key storyline to watch in this matchup.
The key, Fran, is, you touched on it, the Eagles defense here, they've got to make it easier for the Eagles offense. They've got to get a takeaway. And I think it does come from stopping the San Francisco 49ers in the early downs and making Nick Mullins throw the football down the field and taking some chances. So I look for the Eagles defensive line to be really aggressive. And I think Jim Schwartz will be more aggressive than he's been in these first 3 games. Had some success last week in the blitz game, and I look for that to continue. They desperately need a takeaway. They've got to give the offense some favorable field position.
Well, and Darius Slay said earlier this week on takeaways, when you get the first one, they start coming in packs. So let's hope that's what we see tonight. Dave, what is, for you, the number one thing the Eagles need to do to get a win?
Well, I think that we've all talked about this the entire week. When Doug came out on Monday talking about changing up the concepts of the offense and kind of reverting back to what they did in 2019 with limited personnel, the run game, the short passing game, the move the sticks mentality. And now you add in Jordan Mailata at left tackle. And you've only got 5 projected starters, including Greg Ward, that you thought about here in August that would be available for week 4. So I'm looking at the offense, the structure of the offense, what Doug Peterson and the coaching staff can change, and then Carson Wentz to go out and patiently execute and take what the defense gives him. I want to see how creative this offense can be with limited personnel, including the likes, as you spoke about, Adrian Killens, a jet sweep, Jalen Hurts in the run game, and Carson Wentz on the move.
All right, Dave, great stuff. As always, we will catch up with you after the game. Thanks so much.
All right, guys.
Okay, Fran, Dave is looking for the defensive turnovers. What do you think this matchup comes down to?
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about the defensive turnovers, I think a big part of that is going to be what I see the biggest matchup in this game, and that's going to be the Eagles linebackers, and we'll say the safeties as well, going up against Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, the play caller for this San Francisco 49ers team. And this is a great example of it right here. Really, the San Francisco offense is based on living in their base package. And what I mean by that is 2 backs, 1 tight end, 1 back, 2 tight ends. They want you to be in their base defense on, with 3 linebackers on the field, and then they're going to try and put stress on those linebackers in space. So when Kyle Juszczyk, who is going to be, he's the Energizer Bunny, you're going to see those gap schemes downhill, ISO, counter, power. They're going to move him into the wing. You might see him as a lead blocker in the outside zone run game. You might see him peel back and do some things on the backside against defensive ends in the split zone game. But it's all the play action and then the gadgets off of these looks. Just last week, Brandon Ayuk, the rookie first-round pick, scored on this end-around right here with Kyle Juszczyk as the lead blocker. So when you've got fullback in the backfield, tight ends on the field, the Eagles defense, they have got to be assignment sound, because not only are you preparing for the run game downhill, the run game to the perimeter, the play action game off of that, and then the gadgets that go with it. A lot of the same things we saw from Sean McVay in week 2 against this Eagles defense, I think we're going to see tonight. The linebackers and safeties must be assignment sound in this matchup.
Yeah, that is a lot for them to focus on, Fran. For my, what I'm looking for tonight is a little bit more abstract, a little bit big picture, but I am looking to see them capture some of that magic that took this team to the playoffs last season. I feel like the stage is set very similarly. We have talked about those injuries, and that means some opportunity for a lot of guys. And I'm paging Greg Ward. I'm paging this running game. That means Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. That means Greg Ward stepping up. We know he has a great connection with Carson Wentz, and I'm looking for Carson Wentz to play some good, clean football. It seems very similar to last season when they went on that run to make the playoffs. I'm hoping we could see that again with the same stage set there. And of course, we have talked a lot about the injuries to both teams, and it is a next man up mentality with the Eagles. So that means some opportunities for players to make an impact. Mike Quick and Merrill Reese are joining us now from Lincoln Financial Field with their players to watch tonight.
Amy, it's a beautiful late afternoon in Santa Clara as the Eagles get set to meet the San Francisco 49ers. Mike, who is your player to watch?
This is an easy one. When you've got a 6'8" mountain of a man, 350-pound Jordan Mailata starting his first time in the National Football League, primetime football, to protect Carson Wentz's blind side, I'll keep my eyes on that guy.
I'm going to look at the guy who's being protected, Carson Wentz. Everybody's saying Carson Wentz is in a bad stretch, and he is. But other quarterbacks have had bad stretches too. I still think Carson Wentz has too much talent not to bounce back, and hopefully this is the night that he chooses to bounce back with an outstanding performance. And if that happens, we could be seeing the upset. Back to you, Amy.
All right, a couple guys on offense there to watch tonight. I'm going to give you one on defense. This season, defensive back Jalen Mills has stepped into a new role, making the move from starting corner to starting safety, a role previously held down by the great Malcolm Jenkins. Now, Mills has embraced the new role and all that comes with it. He sat down with our own Mike Quick for this week's one-on-one interview presented by Pondla Hockey. Take a look.
So, Jalen, thank you for joining us. I'm going to go right in. Through 3 games, you guys are still looking for a W in the win column. How do you get it done? Give me your opinion.
I think the biggest thing right now, and even the message, that Coach has been giving us as a team and individuals is those little bitty small details, that we're missing on. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's communication, whether it's alignment, or even, those self-inflicted penalties, man, we just can't have them. We can't give our opponent anything for free. We got to try to make it as hard on them as they're doing it for us.
So, and also through the first 3 games, you are the leading Eagle in tackles. In total tackles, you lead the team. You're second on tackles for losses. So it seems to be that you're settling into this new position at safety. What's the most difficult part for you in this new position?
I would think it would be the communication part. We have some calls and some coverages where, I'm not only talking to, my corner, telling him that we're in man. We may have some zones and different other calls where I may have to talk to the defensive end, where I may have to talk to the linebacker, where I may have to talk to the safety in the middle of the field, So I think the biggest thing is always being keyed in and locked in to where knowing the personnel and when I get a certain call that, okay, these are the guys that I have to communicate so I can just speed my process up.
Gotcha. So I also noticed that you're taking on a bigger workload. The week before, you had 99% of the snaps, or 100% of the snaps, and then 99% of the snaps. How are you holding up with that type of work?
The best thing that happened to me was Malcolm being here and my 4 years being with him and seeing, how he took care of his body on and off the field, whether it's diet, getting in the cold tub, getting in the treatment room and getting that pain or whatever it may be right out of his system so he can feel his best on Sunday.
So you guys are going up against a Rams or a 49ers team that's very similar to the Rams from a couple of weeks ago. What is it about that offense, that style of offense, that gives you so much trouble?
They give you so many different looks out of so many different personnels, and I think the biggest thing with them is, eyes. All of the window dressing that they're doing with the motions and the shifts and different things like that. You just got to glue your eyes, to your key, and I think that's going to be the key to us, as a defense playing dominant and getting a victory.
So when I look at their offense, they play a lot of 2 tight end sets. They play a lot of 2 back sets. They want you to keep your base personnel on the field. What's the big issue with that when you got bigger people on the field?
They got a guy over there who's top 2 tight end in the league. When you go bigger personnel with them, you know, they're gaining an extra receiver with him and a blocker as well. So I think that's the biggest thing for them, knowing that they got that guy, and I'm talking about Kittle.
Jimmy Garoppolo, he's probably not going to play. Nick Mullins, what can you tell us about Nick Mullins?
Same exact system. You see sometimes, you know, if a quarterback goes down 1 week, you know, they might still be in the same system with the starting quarterback, and then that following week, they kind of adjusted a little bit for the backup quarterback, so he's a little bit more comfortable, but it's the exact same offense.
Well, they have one big difference in Kyle Juszczyk. Most teams in the league don't have a fullback. They have a fullback. They use him in a variety of ways. What kind of challenge does that present for you?
Yeah. He's a Swiss Army knife for them, man. They line him up at 1, at receiver. They line him up in the slot. They line him up at fullback. They line him up at tight end. So I think the biggest thing with that is knowing that he is a key part of the offense and keying in on him when he is in the game, because we know at any point he can be a difference maker for them.
Do we get the turnover this weekend?
That's the plan.
We're still waiting for a turnover.
That's the plan, man. We're trying to get the turnover. You know, we got a ski mask on the sideline, so I'm planning on, you know, trying to put that ski mask on this week for sure.
Jalen, thank you for joining us, and good luck out on the West Coast.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, I love the nod there to Malcolm Jenkins from Jalen Mills and appreciating how much he's taught him. All right, so Fran, we have talked a lot about the injuries on this team, and there's more in the secondary as well. The Eagles are without Avonte Maddox tonight, without Trevor Williams tonight. How helpful is it to have a guy like Jalen Mills, who is so versatile in that secondary? And he's not the only versatile guy back there, but how important is it to have versatile defensive backs, especially on a night like tonight?
It's absolutely important, and in this year more important than ever because of all the concerns about who's in the lineup and who's out of the lineup on any given week. And I think when you look at the addition of Darius Slay, we talked about that all offseason, that he can't be the only one that's versatile. You still need all those other guys to wear lots of different hats at any given time, because if Darius Slay is shadowing an opposing #1 receiver and he slides from the outside into the slot, well, then you need your guy that's in the slot to be able to slide outside and do different things from that way. We saw Jalen Mills last week used as a blitzer. We've seen him against the run. We know he can do some things in coverage as well. I'm excited to see how he's used in this matchup, because really the possibilities can be really, really interesting in terms of what they can do, not just against receivers, but against Juszczyk, against George Kittle. Will he line up over Kittle in this game? It's going to be really interesting to watch how Jim Schwartz deploys these defensive backs, because obviously you're down Avonte Maddox, you're down Trevor Williams, who you were expecting to start on the outside. It looks like Cravon LeBlanc is going to get the start outside opposite of Darius Slay. How are all these guys intermingled, and how are they able to be used? It's going to be interesting to watch over the course of this game.
Well, and when you're looking at the Niners' passing game, their passing offense, this is what I misspoke earlier. They have the 15th best passing offense, 240 yards per game, and 11th in points per game with 29. All right, I have a special announcement for everyone. Eagles fans, don't miss your chance to be in the stands at Lincoln Financial Field this season. There is still time. Eagles fan cutouts are still available, and you can get one for just $100, and all net proceeds benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation, a fantastic cause. You can order yours at PhiladelphiaEagles.com/cutouts. And now that I'm saying this is just occurring to me, Fran, but why don't you and I have cutouts?
Well, I'm going to let you speak for yourself, because I actually do have a cutout that will be making an appearance, I think, sometime soon.
All right, well, I guess I should probably get my act together then and make sure I do my research as well. Wow, journalism, Amy, come on. All right, we will share our final thoughts on today's matchup on the other side of this quick break, so stay with us. The Philadelphia Eagles and Axalta Coating Systems are building a roster of all-pro teachers. Go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/Axalta All-Pro Teachers to learn more. All right, and these guys getting ready for the game. Malik Jackson with the move and the eye emoji. absolutely worthy of that. Sunday night slinging Carson Wentz, of course, on the big stage, feeling confident. His team is confident in him. He is ready for a Sunday night matchup in primetime in the NFC, and we are, of course, glad to have you here on the Kickoff Show, presented by Axalta. And we are now just 15 minutes away from kickoff of Eagles-Niners. And, Fran, when you think of 15 minutes, what comes to mind?
Well, a couple things, and actually in these 15 minutes, you can get a lot done. Number one, you can text EAGLES, E-A-G-L-E-S, to the number 26797 to register to vote. And then you also can save 15% or more on car insurance by switching to Geico. I've done both, and both take less than 15 minutes. You can get both of those done before kickoff, Amy.
I love it. Two very important things, everybody. You've got the time. Get them both done before kickoff. Fran, I'm going to socially distance, fist bump you here. And what do we always say to wrap things up?
It's all about getting that W.
All right. Of course, as we wrap up here on the post-game show, remember to join us immediately following the game for our post-game show presented by Rico Ike Reese. Will be joining Fran and myself for instant reaction and analysis of the Eagles-Niners. And, of course, we will hear from coach and players live as well. All right, it is time for a big one in prime time. As always, see you on the other side.